incredible piece of music is called Zadok the Priest, and it's a national British anthem composed by George Handel, and it was composed for the coronation of King George II in 1727, alongside The King Shall Rejoice. This piece of music is used for the Champions League, I think it is, for the football. So if you're a football fan, you will have heard this piece of music, and when the clip comes on for one of the championships, this is the piece of music that they play. An incredible piece. So last lesson, we left it where we just finished listening to the 4 brass instruments: the trumpet, the trombone, the tuba, and the French horn. Now, we're going to see the science behind how a brass instrument works.
I love the sound of brass instruments like these trumpets, trombones, and of course, horns.
Me too.
Now, this music is called Horn Concerto No. 4 by Mozart.
Do you think it might be twice as good as his Concerto No. 2?
I don't know, but I do think we should probably find out how brass instruments work.
Oh. Yeah, so do I. Brass instruments like this trumpet make sounds when the air inside them is made to vibrate. Vibrating air molecules bump into the molecules next to them, which makes them vibrate too. This creates a sound wave which travels through the instrument and comes out of this part, which is called the bell. When a sound wave reaches our ears, we hear the sound.
We can imagine what those sound waves look like using this spring. So, Greg, catch one end. Nice. And if we imagine that the brass instrument is at this end, then as that sets the air vibrating, it starts off the sound wave like this.
Oh, yes. Wicked. Look at that.
Good, isn't it? And you can see the vibration travelling all the way along the spring. Chuck it back.
But how do you get the air in the brass instrument to vibrate? It's not as simple as just blowing into it. It's time. Still can't do it. When you play a brass instrument properly, this is what your lips look like. In super slow-mo, you can see that your lips have to vibrate, which means they're moving backwards and forwards really quickly. Believe it or not, a player's lips can vibrate over 1,000 times a second. It's the player's lips vibrating against the mouthpiece that makes the air in the trumpet vibrate, and this creates the sound waves.
But these sound waves don't come directly out of the bell. Instead, they're bounced backwards and forwards, creating what we call a standing wave. Let me show you. Right, we've got a rope here, and Greg, can you... That end, brilliant, hold it. Now, what's going to happen is Greg is going to wiggle his end of the rope. It's going to bounce off me, and we should create a standing wave. So go on, start your wiggling. Go on, go on, go on. And there we have it. That is a standing wave, and it's known as a standing wave because the wave doesn't look to be moving, even though we are wiggling the rope.
Can I stop yet?
Yes, you can.
Thanks. So, what happens is the air inside the instrument is vibrating. That then sets the air outside the instrument vibrating, and the vibrations then move through the air until they reach our ears.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, loud.
And it is loud because how loud something is, its volume, depends on the size of the vibrations that make up the sound waves. So if I blow hard with more energy, I make bigger vibrations.
No.
And that produces a louder sound. If I can make my lips vibrate more gently, I make smaller vibrations with less energy. So the sound is softer, like this.
Yeah, I prefer that.
Thought you might.
The earliest brass instruments weren't in fact made from brass at all. They were made from shells and animal horns, which is how some of them got their name, horns.
Makes sense. Now, modern brass instruments, like this French horn, look a little bit different. Now, one thing you might not have noticed at first glance is they are just really long tubes. They're just curled up really tightly to make them easier to hold and to play.
Now, if we were to unwind all the tubing in the French horn, you'd find that it's a whopping 5 metres long.
A sound is coming out, but the thing is, a major problem is that it's very difficult to play lots of different notes.
What sort of note comes out of your brass instrument depends how much air inside the instrument is vibrating. When lots of air vibrates, it tends to vibrate more slowly, making a lower note. Less air vibrates faster, and we hear a higher pitched note.
Now, to prove this, I've put 3 metal tubes inside these 3 bottles of coloured water. In this bottle, there's a lot of water. In this one, not so much. And in this one, even less. This means there's more air in this tube, less air in this one, and even less in this third one. So if I blow across the tube with the most air in it, this one, I should make the low note. But if I blow across the tube with the least air in it, this one, I should get a higher note. Should. And if I blow across the middle tube, I should get a note that's somewhere between the two. It worked!
It does work, but the trick is to be able to quickly change the amount of air that's vibrating in your instrument. There are several ways to do that on brass instruments.
Now, one way is to use something called a slide, and this is how a trombone works. If I stretch the slide out as far as I can, it makes the tube of air longer, and that means a lower pitched note. But if I pull it back as far as it will go, then the tube of air gets shorter, which gives a higher pitched note. See?
Lovely, yes.
Now, different positions on the slide make different lengths of air, which make lots of different notes.
Okay, I get it. Another way of changing the amount of air that's vibrating is to use something called a valve. On an instrument like the trumpet, the player can press 3 valves. This is how you play the note C. And to make a higher note like B, you do this. Pressing the valves means there's less air vibrating, and that makes the note higher.
Brilliant. Another brass instrument is called a bugle, and it has no valves at all. And you can make one from some ordinary plastic piping. So while I finish this off, Greg, what else have you found out about brass instruments?
Well, they're not all made of brass. The shofar is a Jewish instrument made from the horn of a sheep. It dates back thousands of years and is still used in synagogues all over the world. How's your bugle getting on, friend?
I'm almost there, and this is what you do. You take a length of really clean hosepipe, about 1 metre long, and you've got to wind it round twice, like this. And I've used sticky tape just to hold it in place and stop it from unwinding. Then again, we use a clean hosepipe connector, and we attach that onto one end, and this is going to be the mouthpiece of our bugle. And you just screw that into place like that.
Gotcha.
And at the other end, you use a funnel, and that is the bell.
Easy.
Yep. And then you're all done. It's a bugle.
That's surprisingly good.
It's good, isn't it? And I've built you one so we can take our place in the orchestra and jam along with Mozart's Horn Concerto No. 4.
I'd love to.
Now we move to the percussion section. The percussion section has hundreds of instruments that it could possibly play. However, today am going to talk about the main 4 standard instruments. They are the bass drum, the xylophone, the snare drum, and the timpani. The bass drum. The bass drum is a large drum-shaped instrument in the percussion family that produces a low pitch when struck with a mallet or beater on a pedal. The earliest version of the bass drum was the Turkish davul, tabul turkey, that existed in the 1300s. In the mid-1700s, many of these drums were brought to Europe and soon became a popular addition to military bands. The Turkish drums were played with a rod and a wooden drumstick, but when they were introduced into the orchestra by Spontini in the 1800s, they were played with mallets covered in felt. Facts about the bass drum. The bass drum, as part of a drum kit, used in bands along with several other drums, was added in the beginning of the 1900s as part of jazz music. The inventor of striking the bass drum with a bass pedal was William F. Ludwig in 1909, Chicago, Illinois. Adding the bass pedal to the drum kit made it possible for the drummer to play other percussion instruments, such as a snare drum, as well as cymbals, because their hands were free to use smaller drumsticks. Bass drums were made with a shell cylinder that is usually made of a type of wood, occasionally metal, with 2 heads, the part struck by the mallet or bass pedal, stretched over 2 open shell ends. Most bass drums are stationary, as in the drum kit setup. However, when the bass drums are used in marching bands, they must be movable and are suspended by straps or other apparatus to enable the drummer to walk with the instrument. In the orchestra, setting the bass drum is suspended in a frame that allows the drummer to change its position or angle. It is usually suspended by rubber straps or leather straps or even wires.
Absolutely amazing. I had no idea that one could produce sounds like this on bass drum.
It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger on the stage. It's this fire-breathing dragon. It's an electrifying piece.
It may be the world's first concerto for solo bass drum. The composer is Gabriel Prokofiev, grandson of Sergei Prokofiev and a friend of Princeton music professor Simon Morrison.
Completely unlike his grandfather. He does these wonderful club nights in which they mix and match different modern pieces of music. He's got a label that does that.
Gabriel Prokofiev's musical background is eclectic.
When I was 10 years old, I formed a band with a friend doing pop songs.
His concerto for bass drum was influenced by British percussionist Joby Burgess.
The xylophone. The xylophone is a musical instrument with wooden bars that are struck with a mallet to produce sound. The wooden bars are arranged similarly to a piano, and each one is a different length, which creates a different sound. It is believed that the xylophone dates back to ancient Southeast Asia, 2000 BC, and that the instrument was brought to Africa by Malayo-Polynesians. The Western xylophone, which is the one most are familiar with, is first mentioned in Europe in 1511. It was referred to as wooden clatter at the time. It wasn't until the 1860s that the term xylophone was used to reference the instrument. Facts about the xylophone. The xylophone is a member of the percussion family of instruments. Different versions of the xylophone have existed for many years in many cultures. The African xylophone is referred to as the balafon. In Mozambique, the xylophone is referred to as the mbilia. In Ghana, Burkina Faso, Mali and West Africa, the xylophone is referred to as the gil. In western Zambia, the xylophone is referred to as the silimba. The early xylophones in Asia were often created with wooden bars attached to gourds. Today, the frame of the xylophone is made of wood or metal. The xylophone gained popularity internationally in the 1800s when the Russian musician Michael Joseph Guzikov toured with his instrument. Between 1910 and 1940, the xylophone was popular in vaudeville acts. Jazz musicians often used the xylophone in their bands until the vibraphone became more popular in this style of music in the 1940s. In the 1970s, the xylophone became popular in ragtime music. The bars of the xylophone are often made of rosewood or kellon, a type of fiberglass. The snare drum. The snare drum is an instrument in the percussion family that is considered a main part of the drum kit and is found in a variety of bands. The snare drum is usually played with a drumstick and can be found in concert bands, marching bands, parades, drum lines, and in rock bands and modern music. The snare drum is also referred to as the side drum and is the smallest cylinder drum. The snare drum is derived from the tabor, which is a drum that was originally used for accompanying a flute. The snare drum has two heads, and most often they are made of plastic, but some are made of calf skin. The drummer hits the snare drum head with a drumstick or beater that can vary from brushes to the drummer's hands. Snare drum facts. The snare drum can be made of metal, acrylic, composite, fiberglass or wood. The snare drum consists of a shell, snare release lever, tensioning brackets, counter hoop, tensioning screw, and the tensioning mechanism. The snare drum became a member of the orchestra approximately 2 centuries ago. The snare is often referred to as a side drum by the British or those from the Scottish Highlands. In Italy, the snare drum is referred to as a tamburo piccolo, which means a little drum. There are different types of snare drums, including the marching snare, which produces a deep tone, drum kit snare, smaller in depth than the marching snare, piccolo snare, that produces a higher pitch, tabor, original snare from the 1300s, a tarol, a smaller than kit snare, and the caixa malechita, deep snare from Brazil, used in samba music. The snare drum produces a definite pitch. Prior to the 1900s, a definite pitch was avoided in the snare drum, but today it is required in some cases. And finally, the timpani. The timpani are instruments of the percussion family that is also often referred to as the kettle drum. It was introduced to southern and western Europe in the 1200s, and they spread north soon afterwards. These first timpani were pairs of kettle drums and remained in use until the 1500s. The larger version of the timpani spread in popularity across Europe in the 1400s. Over the next few centuries, variations emerged, and the aristocracy used them along with trumpets as signalling instruments. When gunpowder was invented, the kettle drum was not needed for signalling, but remained as an instrument, used for festivals and in church music, and it eventually made its way into the orchestra music and modern music of today. Now, let's have a look at how percussion instruments work and delve into the science behind them.
This music is all about the planet Mars, and it was composed by a man called Gustav Holst.
Ah, but did you know that Mars was also the Roman god of war?
Oh, that's why it makes me think of soldiers marching into battle.
Do you know what it makes me think of?
What?
That we should actually explain how these drums work.
Good idea. Drums have been around for a long, long time, and they were often used in war. A drum has been found by archaeologists in a place called Moravia in Europe, and it turned out to be 8,000 years old.
Whoa! But drums are pretty simple instruments. They're called percussion instruments. And percussion just means one thing hitting another. Thank you. And so to play a drum, all you need to do is hit it. That is beautiful, Greg.
Thanks.
But as well as the drum, other percussion instruments include the triangle. Thank you. The tambourine. Thank you. And the cymbals.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
That's pretty loud.
Drums come in all shapes and sizes, but basically each of them is a hollow body which has a skin over the top. And the skin is stretched very, very tight. When you bang a drum, the skin vibrates. The vibration of the drum makes the air particles inside and around the drum vibrate too, and this forms sound waves. The sound waves travel out in all directions, and if they reach your ears, That means you'll hear the sound of the drum.
Right, so we have got this drum here, and let's imagine that this confetti are the tiny particles that make up air, the air molecules, right? And watch what happens when I hit the drum. Thank you.
Whoa! That's good.
That is awesome. That is cool. So when the skin of the drum vibrates, it makes the air molecules, the confetti, also vibrate and bounce into the air.
Oh, I think we're going to see this much better if we use my super slow-mo camera. OK, go. So there's the hit. It sets the drum skin vibrating. It chucks that musical confetti into the air just like the air molecules are vibrating above the drum skin. And you can still see the skin vibrating.
It is awesome, it's brilliant.
Looks amazing.
So sound waves are invisible, but another way of imagining how they work is to use this bowl of water and a tuning fork. Tuning forks are used by musicians to make sure that their instruments are playing the right notes. And they work by simply banging them, and then they play a certain note.
Oh, nice.
This one plays the note E.
Oh, which means that I can tune the E string on my guitar. Go on.
Let's do it. You there?
That's it.
Now, if I bang this tuning fork again, but this time put it into this bowl of water, watch what happens.
Whoa! So let's use our super slow-mo camera and get a closer look. Oh. In super slow-mo, you can see that the tuning fork wobbles. It's those vibrations that make the sound waves. And it's the same vibrations that get the water all excited too.
And it's quite a good way just to spread water everywhere, to be honest with you.
It is, isn't it? Now, you may not realise it, but you actually have one of these inside here. Yes, inside your ear is something called your eardrum. It's like a drum because there is a thin piece of skin-like tissue stretched tight across the opening between your outer ear canal and your middle ear. When the sound waves hit your eardrum, they make it vibrate, just like when Fran hit the skin of her drum earlier. The middle ear and the inner ear convert those vibrations into signals that our brains interpret as sounds.
Now, excuse me, big drums have a lot of air inside them, and when a drum has a lot of air to vibrate, it makes a low sound. It has what we call a low pitch.
But this little drum has less air inside it, and when you have less air to vibrate, you get a sound with a high pitch.
Nice. But you can also change the sound a drum makes in other ways too. So this drum has a skin which you can make tighter or slacker by turning these handles. So at the moment, the drum sounds like this.
And if we tighten the skin, it sounds like this. Higher. You can even tighten the skin as you're playing it as well to change the pitch. The other thing that's interesting is that the harder you hit the skin, the larger the vibrations and the louder the sound. But the lighter you hit the skin, the smaller the vibrations and the quieter the sound.
And that is what we call
volume! There are lots of different types of drums and drum sounds. You can play just one drum, like a marching drum. Thanks, that's enough. Thanks, that's great. Cheers, thank you. Or you can put lots of different drums together to make a drum kit. And that is exactly what we're going to do right now in a 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes!
done.
Look at that!
Now, what we've got here is, down here, we've got a cardboard box, which is like our bass drum, which we can hit like that.
This is my favourite bit.
It's cool.
Brilliant.
We've got our beautiful cymbal right here. Now, these are the drums. And this one's got a little bit of Greg's spare change on top, so that's our snare drum. Nice sound. And to finish off, we have our big bin drum.
No, actually, there's one more thing we need. An old oil can that I've scrubbed clean. Now I think we are ready to rock.
The largest drum meters tall, thank you, and weighs 7,000 kilograms. That is heavier than an African elephant.
However, if you want to make drums that are simple and easy to make, fun to play, and cost hardly anything, then we are going to show you how.
What you need is a plastic cup, elastic band, a balloon, and some scissors. Now be careful with the scissors. And what you do is you take the balloon and you simply just snip off the neck of the balloon, like that. Then you just need to place it over your cup, and it's really important to stretch it completely with no lumps and bumps in. And then you take the elastic band and tighten it up. Can you just help me with this, Greg?
Sure.
Can you just put it over?
1, 2.
And there you go. That is your drum made. Greg, can you just patch it in that kitchen mallet?
Yes.
Thank you. And you just hit it.
Works well. You can make other types of percussion instruments as well by adding rice, or I've got some popcorn here that hasn't been popped yet. You can just put that inside the bottom of your cup and...
Ah, it makes like maracas. I like that. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Pretty cool, but I've got to say, I think my homemade drum kit wins this one.
Take it away, Mr. Holst.
Let's go to Mars!
We are really lucky in our area that we have two of the oldest orchestras in Great Britain. We have the Slough Philharmonic, which happens in Slough, and the Huddersfield Philharmonic Orchestra, which happens in Huddersfield Town Hall. Slough is an industrial village in the beautiful Colne Valley near Huddersfield in the West Riding of Yorkshire. Here, a group of amateur musicians met in 1891 to found a philharmonic band. In its long history, it has experienced both triumph and disaster, but for some years now it has enjoyed uninterrupted success, recognised by the award of the National Federation of Music Societies Sir Charles Groves Prize in 1993 and a Performing Rights Society Enterprise Award in 91 and again in 96. Each season, the 80-strong orchestra gives 4 concerts in Huddersfield Town Hall and further concerts in other venues, including their home venue of Slough Civic Hall. Its conductor from 1969 to 2001 was the late Adrian Smith, who was also the orchestra's historian and publications editor. Adrian was succeeded by Chris Holding, who made his debut with the orchestra in January 2002. In October 2008, Benjamin Ellin was appointed musical director. Under Benjamin's Ellin direction, the orchestra's reputation for bold and adventurous programming, as well as champion repertoire often neglected by professional orchestras. The 2016-17 season was the Slough Philharmonic's 125th anniversary. In 2008, Mr. Simons, yes me, was the leader of the orchestra for 3 years. The Huddersfield Philharmonic Orchestra performs concerts 5 times a season, either in Huddersfield Town Hall, Dewsbury Town Hall, or Huddersfield Parish Church. They bring together a mix of players, young and old, from the town and surrounding areas who share their talent and love of music with each other every week. This orchestra is more than 150 years old. This is the end of the guide to the orchestra. I hope you have enjoyed learning about the different instruments and the sounds that they create. If you feel inspired and would like to play an instrument, please tell your teacher so we can sort out a form for you to take home. Thank you and enjoy your music.